Good afternoon, Watchdogs. This is Roger Welch with the Cedar Hill Watchdog Group. We're sitting down today with Dr. Jacquetta Haygood, who is a candidate for the Board of Trustees, place one. I met Dr. Haygood just the other night at the joint City Council and Board of Trustees meeting.
Yes,
Yeah. And at least got to introduce ourselves, right?
absolutely.
Yeah. So I know it's getting right down to the wire on the voting schedule and all of that. So, and I know how busy you've been. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us. We have about 500 members in our Cedar Hill Watchdog Group, and approximately another 500 in the POA
Okay.
watchdog group. So, and there's probably some overlap. So we'll reach out to a few hundred people here, and anybody that's listening, if you want to share this video with anybody that's interested in the schools, and I hope they are, and I hope they'll vote. You're more than welcome to do so. I didn't ask Dr. Haygood for a bio in advance. I thought I'd just leave that up to her to tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll go from there. This is just going to be kind of a casual conversation. I don't have a list of questions. Just we'll see where the conversation goes. And with that, Dr. Haygood, tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Mr. Welch, for inviting me into your home and to this platform.
My
Uh,
pleasure.
and it is my pleasure to just introduce myself. I know I got a chance to chat with you briefly at the joint City Council as well as the Board of Trustees for Cedar Hill ISD uh, meeting that we had met at.
Right.
And so just to let everyone know who I am, I've been living in Cedar Hill for the past 11 years. My husband's a retired audiologist from the Army.
Oh,
And
okay.
so we bought our home here in Cedar Hill in Lake Ridge. And our children as well came here with us. And they started my son, he started over at Perimeter Middle School and
Okay.
then went through the ninth grade center when they had the ninth grade center. He also got involved in the JROTC program, and he is now a veteran from the U.S. Army.
Oh, okay.
Served in the military, was deployed over in Korea as well as over. He signed up to go to Iraq, and he was deployed there for about 9 months. My
Wow.
daughter graduated from Cedar Hill High School, where she attended the Early College Academy there, and she graduated in 2023 and she is now a senior over at Prairie View A&M University, and she is majoring in biology. She hopes to be an OBGYN one day
Wow,
and go to medical
congrats.
school. And that's all from just products of Cedar Hill ISD. So very impressed with what they had to offer. And she also went through the collegiate pathway as well. And so definitely she is going to be doing some great things. I started in public education uh, right after I got out of college. I graduated from Colorado State University, and I was interested in going into law, but I ended up going into the classroom. I started off as a paraprofessional in a special education classroom, and then I was recruited to get my teaching certification, and I became a special education teacher at the high school level. I went from a couple districts before I moved out of Texas and started traveling around with my husband from his assignments in the military and taught high school special education for 14 years. I taught different levels uh, of special education from students with learning disabilities to behavioral disabilities to physical disabilities. And then I got into administration and I started off as a high school administrator and then as an AP, and then I went to work as a principal at the elementary school and did that for about 4 years. And then I got back up to the high school. Now I am assistant principal currently and been working with students. And I feel that definitely what I'm doing now. I'm wanting to work with students, stand in front of students, and making sure that they are doing what they need to do to be successful, as well as pour into their lives. And it's just amazing to see them get to that graduation stage and walk the stage, and knowing that we have poured into their lives and we've done what we needed to do to get them successful, to get them to become successful,
Right.
but also to get them across that stage, because it's a lot of work that goes into doing that. But also, I serve here at my church, at Point of Light Church in Cedar Hill, as a praise team director.
Oh, okay.
For our dance team, we just actually ministered in dance on this past Sunday for Easter Sunday, and I have adults on my team that are from ages of 19 to 76 years old. And
Wow.
so we minister and dance in that way. I also am involved in other things within the community, as well as even with the school district. I'm on the bond oversight committee, in which, after the bond passed in 2024 for Cedar Hill ISD, I was invited to be on the bond committee, as well as I think it's about maybe 25, 30 other people that's on that committee. And
How often does that group meet?
quarterly.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and so we meet for that, to make sure that what was supposed to happen with the both of the propositions that is happening regarding how they are spending the money, the expenditures that are given to them as far as what they're going to do with it. We are overseeing that and making sure that that's what's happening. And we get a report at those meetings, and we get as well the visuals as far as what's going on with the money, the timeline, how it's being spent, and what needs to happen for us to utilize those funds. And then also just kind of, yeah, as well, having that conversation is, if this is what the money is going to be used for, why is it being used for that? And making sure that every campus is being touched. And so there's a report as well that's given. There's a financial report that's given as far as how the money is spent, but also it is the transparency behind that, because you can actually go on to the website and you can look and see exactly what is being done with that money, and what it looks like, and the timeline behind how that money is being spent. I'm also on the school board trustee connections, and that's just conversations about, hey, what is the district doing? What do they need to do? How what are some areas that need to be refined? What are some areas that they're doing well in, and that we need to keep doing well in those areas? But also just kind of resetting some of those goals and the vision and the mission for Cedar Hill ISD. But having those critical conversations as far as, hey, these are some things that are causing us not to grow, and these are some things that are allowing us to grow. So let's keep doing those things.
What was really the trigger to motivate you to run for the board?
Well, that's a good question. I think, well, I won't even say I think, I know and I believe uh, that there's a there's a calling of anything that I want to do and I would like to do. There's a calling that kind of comes with that, and that calling is, what is that purpose? And that, so I have to have a purpose of why I do certain things, and that purpose really comes into just my servant leadership and wanting to see things be better for others, but also
It's too funny. I call that a purpose-driven life.
hey, that's what I would call it as well.
Yeah.
But it's whenever I want to do something, it goes back to that. It goes back to, what is the purpose behind that? Why would you want to do something like that? And a lot of times it's the what. What does it take? What's going on that's making me want to uh, even put my name in the hat to even be a part of that organization, or a part of that cause, or a part of that movement.
Yeah, you do know. I mean, the board of trustees, it takes up a lot of time.
It does, especially when I already have a lot of things that I'm doing.
Right.
But a lot of that is just me wanting to serve, because I
Okay.
know that what I have and the degrees that I have, it's not really for me, it's for others. And so, why would I obtain all this just for me, just to have it and just to shelve it and to put it on, on display, when I can actually help others, and I can uh, contribute in that way with what I've learned and what I've been able to gain. And so
I like that.
I want to be able to give back, and I just can't get away from that. And giving back requires sometimes my time, and it requires my knowledge, my understanding, and as well as my passion for what I do. Because uh, there's many times when I see that there's things that should be happening, and if I am aware of, hey, well, this is what I can do to help that happen, then why not be able to contribute with that
Yeah.
and to add to that conversation or to add to that cause or that movement?
Yeah. I totally get what you're saying. It's no secret that we in this district are at a kind of at a crucible time. Um, the performance hasn't been good. Hasn't been good. I went to the board of trustees meeting last evening, and I guess I hadn't read the agenda close enough, but I'm sure you know by now the district, the CHISD superintendent uh, retired. Uh, it's kind of bittersweet in a way. I mean, that's something that we've been calling for. I mean, everybody knows that. It's no secret. It's not because we had an axe to grind or anything. Dr. Hudson is a very nice man. Very nice man. As a matter of fact, I was on the way out last night, and I don't know, maybe it was divine intervention or something. I don't know, but he just happened to be walking by, and I stopped my car. I didn't care about the people behind me, and I got out and I shook his hand. And I said, "Thank you, sir, for your service," and I gave him a hug. And um, I want everybody to know that we really do sincerely wish him well, and whatever he decides to do, I hope things work out for him. On the other hand, I think it's good for the district that that the board, and if you get on the board, you're going to be involved in this. Search for a superintendent that has a track record of really turning around difficult situations, and all we can do as a city and as a constituency is to keep our fingers crossed. But I think with Dr. Denise Roach Davis at the helm, I haven't known her for very long, but I've gotten to know her a little bit, enough so that we have some dialogue, and I think she's moving in the right direction. I really do. I think she sees what the challenges are, and I think she will step by step get us there with the support and of the board of trustees. Was it a surprise to you, or was it something that you saw coming with Dr. Hudson?
Well, it was a surprise, and I didn't see it coming.
Okay.
But I do know and understand that everything rises and falls on leadership.
It does.
And there, to whom much is given, much is required.
Right.
And overseeing a district, it's a, it is a weight to carry.
It is.
And you can't carry it by yourself.
No.
It takes others to be able to help you carry that. And I know that the expectation of anyone who is running a district, running a company, they are the CEO of that.
Right.
And we want to make sure that, there's accountability to all of that.
Right.
But being on the board, and as you even mentioned, it's serving, and for you to even tell him, thank him for his service. That's what we would do as well as a board, is making sure that that service is being taken care of.
It's recognized.
And yes, recognized, definitely. And that students are being taken care of, and the
Mhm.
district is being taken care of.
Right.
And having to search for another superintendent going to be a lot.
Yeah.
And that expectation and that bar has to be up there and it has to
Right.
stay up there, and they have to rise to that bar that's being held, because when that bar is up here, then that's where everyone else needs to come up there as
Amen.
well.
Amen.
And that's the expectation, and holding those expectations to anyone who's in leadership, even myself as a future board member.
Right.
But the current board members, they're holding themselves to that expectation. I heard them mention, Dr. Denise Roach had mentioned about who had went to certain trainings and the required trainings, and then many of them, and all of them I should say, exceeded the number of hours and trainings that was required, because you have to be trained, you have to be knowledgeable, you have to
Mm-hmm.
be competent of what you're overseeing and why you're overseeing that. And so that's already impressive, because that's going in the right direction of making sure that that bar is still up there and that the bar is not being lowered. Because if you're lowering the bar, then that's the behaviors and that's the outcomes you'll get.
Amen.
I am definitely a solution based mindset kind of person. I believe that, there are problems and there are things that need to be refined. And as an educator and administrator, I look at that and I recognize that. But I also recognize and know that we have to go and we have to get the job done. And so in order to do that, I can do surveys all day long and say, hey, what's the problem? What's going on? And someone can come to me and complain about it. And, hey, this is what the problem is. And then now it's time to talk about, well, what are the solutions?
Right.
And then once we find some solutions, then those solutions have to be viable to getting the right kind of outcomes.
Amen.
And we can't just start just throwing things up in the air. Say, well, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. No, it has to be proven that these are research-based practices. These are proven practices that can get results.
Right.
And those results benefit everyone. And
Everyone.
it starts with the students. And you mentioned about academics. That's the first and foremost important thing, that any of this decision that is made with the district, it has to start with, how are our students performing? What are the outcomes? Because when they're performing in the classroom, they can perform on the field.
That's the
They can
bottom
perform
line
in
for
court.
me.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about academics. Um, I've been open with just with my observations that it appears that, and I could be wrong, but it appears to me that the priorities are a bit misplaced. I think it's great when the girls team wins the state or
Absolutely.
whatever, the fine arts. But when I go to meetings and I don't hear anything at all celebrating academics, talking about the academics, maybe there's nothing to celebrate. I don't think there is. That's a problem. We need to fix that, because reading, writing, math, science, I don't even care about the graduation rates, to tell you the truth. If you're graduating kids that can't operate at their are not functioning at their grade level, what's the graduation rate mean? Um, I think everybody knows that the schools are issue number one for us right now. The city has a reputation for poor schools, and I believe that can be fixed. I really do, with the right leadership.
And I agree with that. And you mentioned about the reputation. And so that's a lot of what my what and my why is that reputation piece, that transparency, but also the narrative that comes with that. Because we definitely have to work on the things that need to be refined and corrected. But when we miss those opportunities of seeing, hey, these are some excellent results that are happening with some of these kids, even my own kids.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was things that they needed to do to refine and to do better,
Mm-hmm.
but they also were able to graduate with an associate's degree. Well,
Mm-hmm.
when I say they, I should say my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But there was people in her class, and there was a large number of students who graduated with their associate's degree before
Yes.
they got their diploma, their high
Well,
school diploma.
last night there were a bunch of students who were being honored because they were going to Austin. I think it was Austin
Yes.
because of a business.
Uh, the
They were excelling in some kind of a business program
yes,
or something to that effect. That does my heart good.
absolutely.
That's the kind of stuff I want to see.
Right. And that's what, as a candidate for a school board, and once I get on the school board, that's what I would like to highlight. And when I have conversations with people in the community, even when I started having a conversation with you, that's what I would hear. Some of the things that they didn't even know about. And I know that when they no longer have students in the district, or grandchildren that goes to the district,
Hmm.
then they're far removed from that information because they don't get the emails and the mail outs. But now that's changing. There's some things that I know the communications are doing now, that making sure that, hey, that people in the community know what's going on in Cedar Hill ISD. Again, there's still some things that we need to
Right,
refine,
right, right.
but the things that need to be highlighted is, hey, these are some super talented, academic excelling students, scholars who are doing some great things. And not only are
Well,
they doing
yeah,
great
let's
things in
put them
school,
up
yes,
and use them as an example, and then pull all the other ones up to meet them.
yeah. And I believe that that will be happening,
Okay.
and it will be happening soon, and it is happening now in some aspect, but just to do it even more, I think that needs to
Okay. To
happen.
get a little bit more specific,
Yeah.
over the last 5, 6 years, the numbers have declined in terms of the state rating on the star stuff and all of that. In your mind, how do we turn that around?
Well, what's happening now, even with the A through F rating, that's been on pause for good 3 years now. And because of that pause, then there's no exposure that those outcomes are going up, and we're just still back looking at, hey, this is what's happening now, and this is
Well,
what's going
Dr.
on.
Hudson was tracking that
Yeah,
stuff internally, and he
right.
shared some information, and the numbers actually went down.
Right. And and I know that there was as well, even when we've gotten past the learning loss from COVID, and just resetting what it looks like to have students excel academically is what we're looking at. Even with the board trustees connections, that's the conversation as well. And every time there is a concern that's brought up, student
Do
success,
you
student
guys talk about
academics.
specific action items
Mhm.
though that can be done? Because
Absolutely.
in my initial meeting with Dr. Hudson, I don't know if I'm going to see if I can remember. I asked him specifically, okay, what are your major challenges? What
Mhm.
are the biggest impediments to
Great question.
what we're seeing here? And he said, teachers number one, um, discipline, discipline, community and com- community support. He mentioned money, but yeah, well, I mean, he said money. I'm not sure I
Mhm.
agree with him, but and then the fifth one was student and parent apathy. Those were the five. So if there's student and parent apathy, that's a disastrous equation right there. Eduardo, I mean, he seems like a pretty
Yeah,
sharp
good
guy.
guy.
Yeah, I think his position is something about parent and community engagement or something
Mhm.
like that. I gave him some suggestions and regarding that, and I mean, hopefully they'll at least look at them. But we have a 33% turnover rate with teachers, and what does that tell you? I mean, somehow we've got to take each one of these areas and do a deep dive into them and come up with some stuff that will make a difference.
And when you mentioned about action items, with all those issues and concerns that even Dr. Hudson mentioned to you, there are action items that go with that and that they're doing now. I know even with the teachers and teacher retention, one of the things that they did was to pass the Vader to make sure that they're paying the teachers. Now we got to as well make sure that they are trained and that they have the supports that they need for professional development so that they can teach those rigorous courses, but they also can teach the TEKS, those Texas essential knowledge and skills, even if it's something that they, using the curriculum, they have to also know that these are the basic skills, the fundamental skills of being able to know the content and to gain knowledge of that. Also, teacher mentorship. That's how they retain teachers. They're putting teachers in with mentors. So veteran teachers, the seasoned teachers are with the novice teachers, and so that they can look at best practices, but having those supports as well. Frequently evaluating them, doing walkthroughs, instructional walks, things that they can have those conversations with. Hey, this is what good teaching looks like. This is what quality teaching looks like.
Okay.
The other thing is putting supports in place for students who are failing and who are not gaining that knowledge and understanding, making sure that there's programs, that there's child find when they are, working with students. And child find is when, student may need specially designed instruction, and so that they may need a different way of being taught. But also there's the intervention and remediation that they are as well providing.
Can you expound on that a little bit, because we have such a high number of students that are not functioning at their grade level. How do Are we pulling those kids out and somehow tutoring them more, or is that what this
Yeah.
program is doing?
Well, that's special education.
Oh, okay.
When I say specially designed instruction, and
Okay.
child find is making sure that, hey, are we look first we want to do tier, so there's tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 instruction. Tier 1 instruction is when the student is in the classroom, the general education classroom, and they're being taught by the general education teacher, and that's where we want every student is in tier 1 instruction. Tier 2 instruction is when you have to try and provide a few more supports for that student, and
Who does that?
that would be the teachers and sometimes the paraprofessionals, or
Okay.
it may be instructional aides, but it's usually still at the level for the general education teacher. Uh, and when you
Does
get to,
that happen during the school hours?
and so that's where you have to build in that time during the school hours when you're doing the remediation, but it can be during instructional time in that classroom. You can have centers, even at the high school level, where the students are rotating and the teachers are basing their lessons on, okay, well, this is what this student is able to do. If this student's already able to do it, then they're moving to another area within that activity or that lesson.
Okay. Okay.
But they're trying to scaffold information, and that's where they're breaking it down, chunking that information. And so you're trying to reach that student at the level in which they learn. And so that's how you pull them in so that you can get them where they need to be.
Okay.
And if that is not helping at tier 2, then it becomes tier 3. And that's when you do a referral for evaluation for special education, in which then that student may get pulled out into a classroom that's a special education classroom, where it's a smaller set of number of students in that classroom, or they may still be in the general education classroom, and they may have additional support, and they may have a special education teacher in there with a general education teacher.
Okay.
And so that there are different approaches that can be done to make sure that students are learning at their levels, but also that the support is there.
Do you see any role at all for community members, or, I mean, even people like me, retired people, whoever, retired professionals, or whoever, um, to volunteer in tutoring kids during the school day?
Well, Mr. Welch, I think that's an excellent idea. There are some processes first that they must do
Yeah,
in
I'm
order to
talking
have
with the
that. Yes.
materials
Mhm.
created by the
Okay.
district,
Okay.
within the guidelines created by the district, so that it's, well managed.
Right.
But I'm just thinking out loud. I mean, there's a lot of resources out in the community that could really add to the teachers and the paraprofessionals that you're talking about.
And I like that. And what that would have to look like is definitely making sure that they're vetted as far as
Yes.
who's in front of the students.
All of that. Yes.
In that training. But that volunteer that you're talking about, as far as even with the tutoring, I mean, those are things that probably may not happen all the time during the school day. I know at the different levels, like elementary level, they may have volunteers that come into the classroom and read to students. But when it comes to maybe the middle school and the secondary levels, they may have to have someone else who, first of all, that may make sure that they're certified, because that's the whole thing, is making sure that they're qualified to work with those students and be in front of those students.
What
But
does certified mean? What do you mean by that?
so that means that you have gone to school to get a certain number of hours, college level hours, and as
Oh,
well,
okay.
yeah. So you have a certification in that content area, because that's where the highly qualified teacher comes in.
Okay. But from a, I'm just thinking of myself. Okay.
Yeah.
For example, I have a master's degree in healthcare and hospital administration.
Okay.
What I'm not certified educator,
Right.
but I can certainly tutor somebody.
And that could be utilized. It's just how that's utilized, because when teachers are in the classroom and there's the instructional time, so they have to, because they're certified and they're trained to teach this curriculum
Mm-hmm.
that the district has given them. So they have to know how that delivery goes, because not every student learns the same way.
Right.
So then we get some volunteers that come in. Someone like you, hey, I'll come in and volunteer and provide some hours. That may be available during, maybe not during instructional time, but if they have in my district that we have advisory, and so that's like 20 minutes a day that they're going to advisory. And so if there's some volunteers that's coming in to work with students during that time, but that's also the opportunity for students to go to their general education classrooms or their teachers to get some extra help. 20 minutes every day, they can get some extra help, or they stay after school. So if we are adding that piece in there of volunteers coming in there, they have to be vetted to make sure that they are able to teach the way that the curriculum should be taught. And that's what teachers are being trained on,
Hmm.
is that professional development piece of, hey, I'm teaching you how to solve this problem. I'm teaching you how to write this. I'm teaching you how to do um, a DBQ, a document analysis for like an AP classroom. And so the teachers are trained, and they go through some extensive training and hours of training to know how to teach this curriculum, or teach this standard, or teach this kind of formula or process. And so when we get a volunteer that comes in, they may not be as familiar with how to teach that. And so they may start teaching it, and then, it just really confuses the student.
Hmm.
And so it just depends on the level. But if it's something, where, hey, I understand this curriculum, I've seen this curriculum, I see how you teach that, that's a strategy you're using, this is the process that you're using. And so that when it's time to take that test, then they're familiar with how to do it. And then with the
Or even help
volunteer,
the kids with review tests. I know my daughter is a plastic surgeon, went to medical school,
yeah,
but I think I even said this on one of the other podcasts. Um, Before she took the MCAT, she took Kaplan courses to to practice for the
okay,
MCAT. I took the LSAT, GRE, whatever. These tests are not at that level, but the point is there is value in teaching kids how to take tests.
absolutely, I agree, because they're going to see that formula, they're going to see that format, they're going to
Right.
see that test question.
Yeah. And
But then it's just a matter of how do you, and it's also the part of critical thinking skills. How
right.
do you critically think?
Amen.
And that requires a way of learning that. And even with the metacognition part of it piece, is they have to know how they learn.
Okay. Well, it
Um,
sounds like you're open to that
oh yes,
idea or any other ideas,
it's just
just to vet them or whatever. It just is all a part of the pot. Um,
hey, I think that honestly, I think it's a great idea, because when we have people who want to volunteer, as I just said, everything rises and falls on leadership,
right.
but You can't do it by yourself.
How do you, yeah, that's a very good point. And it's funny you say that because I use that lingo all the time.
Yeah.
Um, so with a new superintendent, how, because we can come up with the best district improvement plan known to man,
Right.
unless it's effectively driven down through the system,
Mm.
it's not going to be giving us the results we want. From your experience in education, how's this new superintendent going to do that or should do that?
Well, they first have to start with what is the plan and what should it look like. Not only that is what is their vision, because the vision has to align with the vision of what Cedar Hill ISD is all about.
Hmm.
And once you are able to get a vision that is solid and a strong vision, then everything else is planning up under that.
Well, let me
If
just
you
say,
work
let
towards
me
the
pick out
vision,
one then. Let's say I'm on the board and I tell the superintendent, I want our students at least 90% or whatever or more functioning at their grade level in reading, writing, and arithmetic.
okay,
How are you going to make that happen?
well, then what they should be doing and responding is we're going to have to get some processes and procedures in place. And those checks and balances start with what is the expectation? What is it that these students need to know how to do? They need to be able to read at grade level. They need to be able to perform at this level. And then you start putting your checks and balances in place, and that can look like even what they're doing now with the trustees connection is doing it with fidelity and having a cadence of accountability. And with that cadence of accountability, you say, this is what I want. And then you start checking on it and seeing what does the dashboard look like.
You
And
just
so,
hit, yeah,
yeah,
okay. I was hoping you'd say
yeah, and
dashboard
you put a
because they need
dashboard
one.
there. Yep, absolutely. And then you have a scorecard. And so that
There
each
you go
time,
again. I love that.
each time you meet, you go and you check. And so each department, the English department, the math department, science department, social studies department, electives department, the maintenance department, everyone has a dashboard and everyone has a COA.
Thank you.
And with that, that's how you are able to manage and you can look and you can inspect what you expect.
Totally agree. Manage, you got to measure in order to manage most effectively.
Absolutely.
And yeah, um, I totally agree with what you just said. And I would think that the superintendent um, bi-weekly or no less than monthly sit down
Absolutely.
with every principal and go through it with a fine-tooth comb. How did we end up with a $7 million deficit?
Well, that's a good question. And without me looking at the books and looking at every line item, I do know that that $7 million deficit shortfall is not just happening here in Cedar Hill ISD, it's happening across the states and other districts as well. What happens is that when we have unfunded mandates and we're supposed to be doing this and we have to have all these safety security measures in place and this is what we're supposed to have, then we start spending money on all that. Okay, we're going to spend money on all these safety security officers and we're going to buy this type of equipment and we're going to make sure that the doors are situated with these types of devices. And then we have all that, we spend money on that, and then we spend money on, hey, okay, now we have to make sure that students are being able to have access to technology, so we spend money on that. So then you spend all this money, you allocate this money because the State Department was going to give us money, but then they hold that money back and don't give it to us. So then it's like, well, we didn't spend all this money and use this money to take care of this, and we now don't have the funding for it because you held money back, and so therefore the district has to pivot, and not just our district, but other districts are experiencing that loss and trying to figure out, okay, now we're going to have to do some cuts here. We got to do some budget cuts. We got to do some staffing cuts. We have to do all these things because of this money that was supposed to be allocated, and that's what we were thinking we were going to use it
And
for.
ours is compounded because we're losing enrollment.
And speaking of enrollment, and so this is how this works as well. So then you have the money, the vouchers that just passed. So then you got $10,000 per student, and then you have the average daily attendance, and that's another factor that plays in. But back to the vouchers. So there are students, because Cedar Hill ISD is an open school district, then when students come in, okay, well, we get the money for that student, and that's great. But the students that are not coming in, that should be here, and this is their home campus, but they're going to charter schools or they're going to private schools, they go to those schools, say at the beginning of the year, and then something happens at those private schools or those charter schools, and they send the students back to their home campuses because they're like, well, no, you can't be here anymore, because they can do that because they're governed
Why?
under
Because the
different.
kids were acting up or something?
Oh, it can be various reasons. It can, I mean, because they can do that. A public school can't do that. We have it's free and appropriate education.
Yeah.
We have to find other ways to discipline students as well to make sure that they're held accountable. But if they come back to our district because of whatever reason they come back, they may get dissatisfied with the principal. I don't know what the reason may be, but guess what? That money doesn't follow that student. So then we've lost that money.
That's a problem.
And guess what we're doing? We're
Yeah.
educating those students who've come back into the district.
Yeah, that's a problem. What's going on over at Cedar Hill High School with respect to the students tearing up the bathrooms and all that?
Well, that's just not a Cedar Hill ISD problem. I promise you. That's across the state.
Well, I'm not worried about these others. I'm worried about Cedar Hill.
Correct. So then it is issue when they do that. So any students who do that on any campus, it is a problem.
I heard that they were locking the doors so the kids didn't even have a place to go to the bathroom. Is that true?
Well, now I don't work at Cedar Hill, but I do know that from the information that has come out, sometimes it's misinformation. But I know that even there's been situations in which we've taken doors off the front of the door for a restroom just so that we can make sure that we're able to just kind of walk by. We can't see in the restroom, but usually when they know that someone can just easily just come in,
or at least here,
or here, then they're less likely to act up in the restroom because there's no camera. We can't put cameras in the restroom,
right?
And there's no supervision in the restroom, and so most of the activity that should not be happening, inappropriate activity that's happening, it happens in the restroom.
Can you station a teacher monitor at the door?
Absolutely, you can.
Okay.
It's just those are again systems and procedures that you got to put in place.
Yeah.
So if you see that there's an issue here, then you have to go back and pivot and do some course correction and say, okay, well, hey, there's a lot of activity happening during this class period.
I like how you talk about systems because I'm big on systems.
Oh yeah, systems. They have to work with, and when it works, it becomes a process, and it just becomes seamless.
Yeah.
That you can do it, and it's something that when you can put a system in place and look at what the outcome is from that system, then it's like, hey, that system keeps working.
Yeah, if the outcome is not what you want, then you look at the system. Okay, where's the system breaking down?
Where's it break down? Where's the root cause? You do a root cause analysis.
There you go.
Yep.
Hey, you're talking my language.
Hey, I'm okay with talking your language because that's the language that needs to be spoken of, and it needs to be the right type of language.
Right.
And it's not just that's misinformation and just confusing people.
Yeah, that's why I ask you because I've read stuff in the paper or somewhere, and other people say things. That's just I want to try to verify that with you.
Well, I'm glad you do that because others need to do that as well. And Cedar Hill ISD is trying to do that.
Yeah. What about the discipline? Dr. Hudson talked about the discipline being a problem. What more can we do?
Discipline as well. It rises and falls on leadership.
Okay.
So the principal sets the tone, but that tone is also set from the superintendent as to what is expected on those campuses so that there's a safe learning environment. And it's changing behavior of adults in there, as well as building those relationships for students and then holding students accountable. because discipline is not always a punitive thing.
No, it doesn't have to
It's
be.
yes, it's an internal thing of how do I know that my behavior is causing some negative effect on a situation, and my behavior can also cause a positive effect on a situation.
Right.
And sometimes, a lot of times, it's just small compliance issues, and it's put on your ID, get the class on time,
Okay.
pull your pants up,
Are the
wear your
students
shoe.
able to bring their phones into the classroom?
Well, from my understanding, I don't know what their cell phone policy is, but I know that that is something to definitely look at and look into because of the distractions that cell phones cause
Mm-hmm.
in the classroom and during instructional time.
Okay.
I've seen strong cell phone policies work, and I've seen them work well,
Okay.
and that required everyone to get on board, and it required as well the parents to buy into it. Now, the students never bought into it, but when the parents buy into it, the teachers buy into it, then there can be some instruction.
Okay, so you mentioned parents. I mean, in order for us to turn this around, we're going to have parent involvement. Don't you agree?
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly.
How do we? What more? What other kind of things can we do to get them to really back you?
I think it starts with definitely letting them know what that looks like. These are life lessons that we're trying to teach the students. And even when I talk with parents and I have to have some crucial conversations with them, first of all, I usually start with, I would never come into your home and tell you how to raise your child. I just
Right.
won't do that. And I won't tell you that, hey, this is what you need to do to make sure that your child, gets rest at night and that they study and that they have a great area to study in and a quiet area so that they can get their work turned in. But one thing I will do is I'll partner with them, and I ask that they help support what we are trying to do so that they can get through school or that class period so that we can teach them and they can learn and that we can provide something important to them so that they can grow and they can be a better version of themselves so that when we send them away from us and back home that they are a better version of when they left that house.
Yeah.
But the thing is just getting them to support what we're trying to do because we're really trying to teach life lessons in here.
Yeah. And Cedar Hill has an attendance problem as well. Would you agree that? I mean, parents are critical to that too.
Absolutely. I mean, I know parents may have to go to work, and so if they're already gone to work and that student is still at home, there's no one waking them up. So it's just a matter of letting them know, hey, there's a consequence when you don't get up, and that consequence, even if you don't go to a job, would be that you're fired, or that you get written up, or that there's certain things you don't get to
I know
do.
things are different, but back in my day, there was, yeah, there was consequences.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I do know that, and as I tell parents, hey, the things that you can do to your child, we can't do at the
right.
school. So this is how we need you to help support us. And when parents support us, and they know that, hey, if I'm going to call a parent, and if a student says, well, you can call my mom or my dad, they're not going to do anything. And when I let them know that, I said, well, hey, I was calling you, and they said that you weren't going to do anything. And that you didn't care, but I know that you do because that's why you sent them here and you
Yeah,
sent us your best, but I just need your support on this
yeah.
because this student is doing great and they can do great, but they're held accountable and there's a consequence for the choices. But I still love them. I
Oh
still
yeah,
know they're going
oh
to do
yeah,
great.
oh
And
yeah.
so I think when they hear that, when they see that we're really trying to work with them, and there's times when it's almost like making those deposits, and so you try and make a lot of deposits so that when it's time to make a withdrawal from someone,
Right.
then they're not
Very
emptied.
smart.
They're not emptied. And
Right.
so I do try and make positive phone calls as well, and our teachers do that, and we would encourage that. And those are the things when you're trying to build that relationship because I just guarantee you that I don't believe that teachers show up to school every day to just pick on a student, to not love on them, not to educate them.
Right.
I don't believe that they would show up to do that. And if they do show up and that is their mindset, then it's time to make some change with that.
Right. Right. Well, I like that. I like that. Developing relationships. That That's the keys to the kingdom,
Absolutely.
right there. Yeah. From what you know about Cedar Hill, the Cedar Hill district, what in your mind, what's the biggest, what's the number one issue for you?
The number one issue is the negative light that's shown on Cedar Hill ISD.
Okay.
And
Well, you know, I've had councilmen tell me on the QT that we've lost corporations. Um,
that needs to
People are
change
taking their business elsewhere. Economic development has suffered. I mean, you can't correct a problem until you admit there is a problem.
right there.
And I can understand why that would be issue number one.
And so to change that and the solutions that I have is the what again. What can we do and what should we do? You know, when I was in high school here at Carter High School, there was a negative light shown on Carter High School as well. But there was great things that was happening at Carter High School. And there was great people that came out of Carter High School and that did some great things.
Right.
Me as one, quite a few of my classmates as well. And even when with Cedar Hill, it's like, hey, where do you go? I go to Cedar Hill ISD, or I graduated from there. When I hear people say that, they say it with pride, and they start talking about the things that they're doing. I was at the Grease play, and one of the performers, because I was looking at all their displays, because the seniors had their displays up, and I spoke with a parent, and she said that, and I asked him, I said, hey, what does he plan on doing? Is he going to college, after he gets out of high school? And she said, well, he is going to college, and he wants to study to be a surgeon. And I was like, look at that. And
Wow.
he already got the application in and got accepted. And I said, you know what? When he goes and he becomes
He got
doctor,
accepted to medical
yeah,
school? Awesome.
well, he's not at medical school for college, and that's what he's going to do
Oh, I
after
gotcha.
college.
Okay.
But he already got accepted in a college that has a great medical program that he would like to
Gotcha.
go into.
Okay.
And so I just told her, I said, well, make sure when he becomes a doctor that he comes back and he lets everyone know here at Cedar Hill ISD what they did for him.
Right.
And and,
Yeah. I
and
mean, using role models is very
absolutely,
powerful.
absolutely. And they need to see that. So they need to see the great things that happens in Cedar Hill ISD.
Amen.
But also we need to fix some of the things that need to be fixed. We can't ignore it.
No,
We
we
can't.
cannot ignore it.
But
And, you know, I'm getting so, I have to admit, it hurts my heart because I've really come hard at the CHISD. But to be honest with you, it's only to try to grab people's attention. That's all.
well, I appreciate that.
You know, it's just,
It,
we just want the kids to do well. I mean, people ask me, Roger, what are you doing? I mean, you're 73, you don't have any kids. You know, it's like, I'm kind of like you, though. I want to live a purpose driven life. And to be honest with you, I don't like innocent people getting harmed.
I like that.
I don't like it. And I see kids, I know they're not all innocent at some point, but you know, just as a broad brush, I see them as innocent because they're in their development stages. And I think we have a responsibility as mature adults, educated people, as a city, whatever, to give them the best that we can because they're not in a position to give it to themselves.
Right.
So, no, I appreciate the fact that you have decided to run for the board and the fact that you're willing to give that kind of time and effort to the community.
Absolutely. I will be ready to hit the ground running after May the 3rd.
Is there anything we can start wrapping this
Mhm.
up? But is there? I mean, since you're here, to anybody that's going to see this video, are there certain things or anything that we didn't cover, or anything special that you would like people to know about you, or your vision for the district, or just anything really?
Well, just to sum it up, I would say that my why has always been my what. What can I do? And I believe that what I have how I position myself to know and understand how to run a building, how to expect teachers to provide quality education, how to expect students to live up to that expectation, and to how to just reach them and how to teach them and how to help them grow. I think it's very important for everyone to know that there's some great things that's happening in Cedar Hill. There's some great people here in Cedar Hill. If there's areas that we have to refine and we have to grow in, we have to be willing to do that. We have to have a growth mindset, and we have to have the opportunity to work together collaboratively to make it happen. And I'm willing to do that.
All right. Watchdogs and neighbors and anyone else in Cedar Hill who sees this video. Again, this is Dr. Jacquetta Haygood, running for the Board of Trustees, place number 1. Again, I appreciate her taking the time and sitting down with us here. I hope you have gained something from this podcast. And yeah, we all want the same thing. We want our kids here in Cedar Hill to thrive. We want them to be successful. And I think we're all on the same sheet in terms of that. So with that, we'll wrap it up. We'll talk to you again soon. And again, Dr. Haygood, thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much.
I appreciate you very much.
I appreciate the time, Ms. Welch.